the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible. We called him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seabird.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. For those of you that have never been here, this is a place where combat vets get to come on. They get to tell their stories. They get to tell how they saw their situation, how their life is going, where it's going, and what they're doing with it now. It's also a place for our sponsor supporters and volunteers to come on deck and talk about some of their things. This is a place where I get to tell my story, to get to tell my vision on things, and how sometimes they affect us in different ways. And as a combat vet, I try to reflect that in a positive manner. But today I have Paul Abney on deck. He is a retired Master Chief, Command Master Chief, but he was actually a Master Chief on board the USS Cole when it got hit. And the USS Cole, we just dealt with the 20 years of its issue just a couple weeks ago. And I'm glad to have him on deck. He's going to be telling his story. He's going to be telling some really good things. So, Paul, hey, thanks a lot for being here. Appreciate you. It's great to got the introduction from, Mike De La Cruz. Mike De La Cruz is a Navy chief, a good buddy of mine. He does a lot of things. He's got a lot of connections with a lot of different people, but he connected us a couple weeks ago, and I just thought it would be an awesome story to have you come on deck and tell some stuff. And thanks for being here. Thanks for accepting that offer.
Well,
how you doing?
Thanks for the offer. I appreciate being on here and just this opportunity to tell the story.
Yeah, I think my time in the Navy, and I'm a Navy chief, but my time in the Navy has been the green side. That my Navy has been the only time I've gotten on ships is with Marines. Where Paul, he's been with the Navy for many years, 30 plus years. And beyond that, he's doing a lot with the Navy now, but he's blue side Navy. And when you talk about green side Navy and blue side, green side being a corpsman, and he shared the responsibility with the Master Chief that was on deck with him, a green side corpsman that came on deck as the Master Chief. And you guys had tag team this issue because obviously we as green side guys don't always have the shipboard opportunities. And on top of that, sonar tech, right? Sonar tech and all this other cool stuff. I mean, you got incredible things going on. So feel free to tell your story however you like. If you want to start from the beginning, kind of into your career, how it went, and some of the things that were important to you as you went through.
Yeah, well, I've done 30 years total active duty with the Navy. I mean, actually, I signed up in delayed entry back in December '76. Went 4 months of inactive reserve, then went active duty in April '77, and retired in April of 2007. And for the last 15 and a half years, I've been supporting the Navy as a defense contractor, predominantly in ASW. That's my background. But, the incident we're talking about on the USS Cole, that happened 22 years ago in October. We just had that 22nd anniversary where I had the opportunity to see some friends. And the other Master Chief on board you spoke of, he was our Command Master Chief, was an FM, Fleet Marine Force corpsman that went into the CMC program. And that was a blessing in and of itself, just because he was, we had 2 senior corpsman and 2 junior corpsmen, basically, because we had a striker from deck division who was former EMT. So basically we had like twice what you normally have on a small boy. But going back to my beginnings was when I came in, it was some time ago, different Navy back in the 70s. Tried to grow my hair as long as I could and act like I wasn't in during that time frame, and then it was still the Vietnam era. There was a lot of anti-military sentiment around, and luckily we voted in a new president. Then back when Reagan came in, he kind of changed the face of the military. It really made a difference in being proud to be in the military after that. I think they changed the face of, hey, whether they're doing what you believed in or not, they're doing what the country has called them to do. And I think so. We had folks then, whether they were supported the war or not, they still supported the veterans after Reagan. And that was a change I think was great. I think the other big change you made was, the military when I first came in was rampant with drugs and alcohol. And he did a zero tolerance piece that pretty much cleaned up most of the drugs, kicked a lot of people out, and cleaned a lot of people up that might have been dabbling before.
Paul, if I can just.
Yeah. Uh-oh, I lost you there. Am I still on, or is it Aaron right now? I'm waiting for a.
Can you see me and hear me now?
I hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. If I can just go back in history just real quick, because when I joined boot camp, one of the biggest things that we had to watch in boot camp was the forestall on fire. And the that forestall incident was kind of a catalyst to changing the way, like you said, the drugs, the alcohol, the cleanup. And that was a huge part of what was necessary, because, it just became so dangerous and everything so in tune with life that it had to change. And so I got to go to boot camp and actually have to watch this movie. I take it your boot camp, you didn't have the forestall issue at the time, because you would already you've already cleared that boot camp time. So I'm just saying that's some of the changes.
Yeah, and and folks going through boot camp now, a lot of them go through. I had the opportunity to go on board the little ship, and I should remember the name of it now. I think it's the Thayer. That all the everyone going through boot camp now goes on board, and they have a mess decks in there that reminiscent of the Cole bombing. I think Master Chief Parlier helped them orchestrate what they put together to show that. And they have one night that they go through that takes them through that test that before they put their ball caps on, they say Navy, and go from recruits to Navy members. So it's a graduation night. Quite a big deal, I think, for the new Navy.
Oh yeah, and that's some of the training I went through too. It's all, in boot camp, I went through a lot of this training, and it's, we went through the training of, hey, if the ship starts flooding, how are you going to patch up everything, and what are you going to use, and all these materials. And yeah, it's a huge thing. It's pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, that, I mean, if you want to go to, go forward, I had several different ships I was on, and then several tours as well on in commands that I rode ships, so it was not as much there responsibility, because you're just a ship rider. You go in there to make sure that they're doing the right thing and checking their progress and stuff. But the Cole was my last ship I checked on. I had while I was on board there, we sunk my first ship, the USS Dale, doing a sink X. That was kind of interesting. And the 5-inch put the holes in right at the water line, and that thing went down. But and our first deployment was on the Cole was pretty tough. Actually, coming back from that, we were just finished. I signed up and went on that ship thinking I was going to do a 4-month med cruise, and us and another cruiser got pulled off to go to the Middle East to replace some ships that weren't quite ready. And the rest of our battle group did the 4-month med, so we got to see all the ports they were visiting while we were sitting out doing ops in the Middle East. But coming back to that, the 2 explosions took place over in Africa. I can't remember the countries now, but 2 embassies were bombed. If you remember that, in '98.
Beirut.
I don't think.
No, that was earlier.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I should have wrote that down. But anyway, that we went home after that. So I mean, we were taking the terrorists lightly at that point, is what I'm saying. And so when the Cole went over in 2000, it was the end of some of the stuff going on over in Bosnia and in that area. That's where we spent the first part of the cruise. And then we were asked to go down to the Middle East because of some of the ordnance we had on board. We went down by ourselves through the Suez, and we pulled into Aden Harbor to refuel like 9 o'clock in the morning. We're expected to be there till about 1600, and it was about 11 o'clock they came on and gave us a heads up that fuel was coming on faster than they thought. They had more pressure than they expected, and be ready to get underway the next couple hours. So people need to start making preps for getting underway. Shortly after, we were having early chow and cheese mess, which normally goes much earlier than the normal early chow, which went about 11:15. And so by the time they passed that 11:15, I was already watching the movie Mission Impossible 2 over in the lounge area of the mess, which is on the port side. And about 11:18, like 3 minutes after early chow, which, if you've been on any of the small boys or anybody that has been on those, the chow line is pretty much packed all the way back and down the port side, which we were almost port side. We were almost, or down the starboard side. I'm sorry, we were almost starboard port side too, which would have left the starboard side out, which could have been much more, caused us a lot more damage, because when the small boat hit on the port side, that was the side that has the general workshop over there and the oil lab, and it hit right. The ground zero was pretty much the general workshop. So that deflected, instead of the blast going down and like breaking the keel, a lot of the blast was directed back up from there, and essentially just kind of rolled the deck from the galley up into the overhead of the galley and across the athwartship P-way that crushed people there and crushed people up in the overhead. And I know it was kind of, when it happened, I was watching this movie. It was almost synchronized with an explosion on there, and this split second thought went through my head was, man, that was loud for a movie, followed by the blast that knocked me back, and all the lights went out, and then it was just this black acrid smoke. And then there was one of those other silly thoughts, it's like, well, I guess this is what the combat pay is for.
Yeah, the silly thoughts that go through your mind when the explosions happen. There's some really weird things that go on. You start to evaluate things, and you're like, wow, some of these movies that were made about this were actually pretty realistic.
Yeah.
I remember getting blown up myself, and I'm thinking to those kind of, and I have these silly thoughts. I tell people all the time, I'm a professional mortar round catcher. It's a hit and miss situation. But yeah, you always have these weird thoughts like, hey, that was pretty loud. It associates with something that was happening at the moment. I thought, just weird, funny things that, just watching the way the grass was blowing for me was kind of like when the helicopters landed. I'm like, damn, man, I've seen this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, and so the training kicked in, I knew to kind of keep low and I tried to go where the door should have been there on the port side, and it was essentially obliterated. So I went back to where the other door was that goes into the galley. And by this time, I'd noticed that, the smoke was just as bad up high as it was down low. And I was standing back up. There was water in the galley, came up to like my shin as I stepped in there. And one of our senior chiefs that was in good shape, Senior Chief Valanahan, was stepping out. And he's like, Master Chief, I don't think we can get out this way. So we both turned around. We kind of decided, well, the port bulkhead is a false bulkhead, meaning it's not full steel. It's corrugated steel. So it's, it's like sheet metal that's corrugated like cardboard. And so we headed towards that to go beat on the bulkhead and let folks know we were in there. And as I was kind of crawling back, I had a shipmate grab me by the arm. You know, Master Chief, I'm dying here, and you got to help me. And I had to leave him, and that was tough. It was like, you know, we're all going to die if we don't get out of this smoke. And so I'm going to try to get to the bulkhead and see if we can't get some help so we can all get out of here. And I believe that was, you know, the one chief that we lost there, Rich Costello, because he was the one from what I can place of everybody else, was sitting across from me, and the one that was thrown when the explosion went. His chair was against the port bulkhead and was thrown over my head, and he was all the way on the other side of the room, over by the serving line. And the internal damages from that, I mean, he wasn't killed instantly, but was it was later when they did actually get us out of there. I'd gone back down, tried to recruit as many stretcher bearers as I could, and going back down. And by the time I got back there, they'd had about half the chiefs already evacuated, and we got the last couple guys out. We ran out of stoke stretchers, and we were trying to use a Miller board on him, and he just kept sliding off. The Velcro wasn't holding him or something, so I went to go find another stoke stretcher, and by the time I got back, firemen carried him out and put him on the stretcher. And then it was sometime later I saw him up on the top deck, and myself and Senior Chief Miller had stepped in to help to do some CPR, because they were giving him air, but it didn't look like his heart was going, because his lips were turning blue and his eyes were blue. So we were trying to do the CPR for his heart, and it was before long that our other chief corpsman came over and said, you know, he's done, and had to call him. So that was a tough moment. But yes, you know, and he was one that I carried around, I think, for a long time with survivor guilt. That, you know, he asked me to help him. He was one of the last people we got out of there. Why didn't we get him out first? Or could we have saved him if we got him out first? But you know, and saw a couple other shipmates in the midst of that, and that's when, you know, that really hit me, when one of them was laying there with kind of some massive injury, but was still just barely alive. And you see that, and it's like, yeah, this is real, you know. And another guy I stood watch with all the time. They're carrying him away, and both of his legs twisted up, but the morphine was helping. He's like, "We're taking care of me, Master Chief." 2 thumbs up. And he was the one sailor, Officer Saunders, that we lost over at the hospital, not on everyone else of the 17 died on the ship before we ever got him off.
Right.
We had 40 evacuated, and 39 of those made it.
Right. And, you know, you said a lot of interesting things there, and I just want to kind of highlight some of these things, because, you know, I know you and I had spent some time just laughing a little bit ago, but because in the moments of chaos, our minds protect ourselves with other things, laughter. There's some things that just kind of you reflect back on. You have these sayings, or you put these things in your mind to kind of balance yourself out. So, you know, those of you that may be watching may be like, hey, how can these guys kind of laugh at the time? But there's also heroes involved. There's situations involved. There's a lot of things that happen in these situations where no matter what you do, it could or could not have made a difference. And we carry a lot of burden. That's why, you know, Combat Vet Vision, if you look down the side, it says the burden of combat is ours, so that America can. Because you were on the ship, you didn't have a choice. The situation evolved, and first you got to take and protect yourself. Just like on an airplane, they say put the mask on you first. This is what's got to happen. Then you can establish a way to take care of other people. But it doesn't change the fact that you're carrying that burden, and these things become very real. And your discussion of this has been just an outstanding piece of humanity, of like, understanding, and just being able to understand it from your perspective is just really cool for me. And I appreciate you, Paul, for bringing it out in that. And go ahead, continue. I just wanted to put
Yeah.
that disclaimer
No,
out there
yeah,
so
no,
people
yeah.
could understand.
And one of the things that helped me initially was just talking about it. 'Cause I knew a lot of other people couldn't talk about it, and for me, I don't, it's the way God made me or whatever. That what eased my mind was being able to bring it up and discuss it. And I'll say it wasn't easy, because there's many times that brings emotion, and I laugh a lot. One of the things say, this old master chief will cry like a baby sometimes in the midst of discussing this, but when it just comes on spontaneously, it not only talking about it, but sometimes when just things are close to my heart, it's like that's something that changed in me, that if it's something that really concerns me, the emotion comes out as just part of that. So I just prepare some folks sometimes ahead of time that, hey, that it happens. But what it helped me do was to realize that a big piece in this was the training we had. Even though prior to this particular trip, we had a new CO. And I'll tell you straight up, me and him didn't see eye to eye on some things. I banged on his door a few times and gave him a piece of my ear, and he admitted to that at my retirement. But I gave him credit most of the time for we went through, he was like, sure, we were going to war. And so we went through training ad nauseum, and that saved a lot of people's lives, I'll tell you, because, and this is what I've talked to many ships, crews about afterwards, is that, when the stuff hits the fan is not the time to learn their damage control base or their basic first aid stuff. You don't pull out the book then and start doing it. You have to practice it all the time and get what we always called, the knowledge of knowing it like the back of your hand.
Muscle memory.
Muscle memory, what the academics will call tacit knowledge, TACIT, that knowledge is only learned through experiential knowledge. And the easiest way to explain it to folks who's never experienced that is, almost everybody's ridden a bicycle before, and I can tell you can read books, watch YouTube videos, listen to someone lecture to you about how to ride a bicycle, but until you physically get on a bike and try to ride it, the muscle memory, the tacit knowledge is not there. And you've got to experience it to learn it. And it's the same with a lot of these things that we do in a combat situation. So the reason that militaries for years have done their training the same way, repetitive nature, so that when the stuff hits the fan and you see things that you shouldn't ought to be seeing, you can still do the job you need to do, despite the things going on around you, because you're acting out of that muscle memory, out of that tacit knowledge, and you don't have to think about it. You just do.
Yeah, it's super important. I mean, the training. I'll say that the training that I did definitely prepared me for everything that I've had to deal with in my career, as well as on the battlefield, and getting blown up myself, and just going through that and kind of understanding. I think it helps us out to know that we were trained properly, and going head to head with your CO. I understand that, as the command chief of a Wounded Warrior Battalion West, and just had to always bring things up and sometimes talk in a way that was, just on a different sheet of paper, but just to make sure that everything's covered. So it's good, really good stuff.
And sometimes things go outside of what's in the book. Sometimes we got to deal just with the human level of what's going on with people. Because I can tell you, as innovative as we get with technology, the true innovation is those soldiers and sailors that are doing their job. And that's always been throughout our history. that has really saved us.
Yeah, it has, and to really recognize that that the humanity of each individual, their personality matters, and
Yes.
you're manager of personalities, not of equalizations in the military. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, Paul, you obviously had to deal with a lot. Talking about it, super important. That's something that you talked about to me before too, and I agree. I talk about it all the time. I run warrior groups. You have gone through a lot of different things. Let's talk about your transition, and let's talk about some of the organizations that you're doing and some of the other things, or anything else you want to talk about. But yeah, definitely talk about your transition, because I think it's really hard for a lot of people to transition. And if you can go through some of those struggles and some of the things that you had to do, but you had a pathway that you wanted to go, and you still had passion for the military.
Yeah.
You're still in it. You're just wearing the uniform of the minute. It's not quite a military.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest change for me came with. I mean, shortly before I retired, about 3 years before I retired, my wife and I separated, and we'd been together 16 years, raised 2 girls. But it was kind of inevitable. We were going separate directions, and PTS might have had something to do with that as well. I don't know, but I almost had a separate kind of post-traumatic stress just in that relationship. I'll say it was very, I came to a point where I recognized that my children might be better off with seeing me in a loving relationship instead of one with yelling and screaming all the time, and I was losing my ability to be well reserved. So since I later met my current wife, and we started dating, and that's been the love of my life since then. And we made a commitment to put God first in our marriage, and I think that brought me back to my faith, and that certainly helped me a lot. So the year, 2007 was a pretty crazy year. I retired that year. I changed residency from Florida to North Carolina. I, retired from the military, started a new job as a government contractor. I got bought a house, was divorced, and then later married, all in the same year. So quite a transition. I don't recommend putting all those in the same year to anybody. But it is what it is. But we my new wife and I, and actually even before we were married, started going to after we were married, yeah, because it was about 2009. I think I started going to a new local church. It was just a little, and that helped me in a new perspective that I didn't have before. So I continue my talks, but now it brought a new enlightening to me. And then later I went through a program that really helped me out called the Welcome Home Initiative. That is a local program here in Virginia Beach. There's also another variant of it that's, and they've gone to different places as well. I think Florida and New York. They started up in New York, and but Father Nigel Mumford is the originator of that program, and it's as a matter of fact, we're doing one next week with some vets. I think we have about a dozen or more that will be coming to that. And it's a 3-day program. It goes Thursday, Friday, and half a day Thursday, all day Friday, half a day on Saturday. And pretty, the rooms are provided for them and for the veteran and a support person. Doesn't have to be a spouse. And meals are provided, and we go through and essentially just help them. And that helped me a lot with my survivor guilt piece. It got me, I realized that that this was in my heart. I wanted to help other vets with the same kind of thing. I went through another program with the intention of learning more about this, and actually got help some more with. I was the Operation Restore Warrior. That was a similar program. It was about 5 days in length. It was their drop zone. It was about 5 days. 2 half days, one on the front and back, and then 3 full days in between. And during that, it actually helped me with a lot of old baggage I had that I really didn't realize that go back to childhood endeavors. And both of these programs are faith-based programs, and really, really helped me a lot. One of the guys who was my kind of personal mentor in Operation Restore Warrior, Keith Poole, him and Kelly Snap, and another guy that I talked to a lot in that program, started another organization called Centurion Witness Ministries. And I've been working with Keith in that program since then. And they have kind of a dual purpose. I'm not only helping homeless vets and providing packages and stuff for them in their local areas, but also doing a similar program to what ORW did, but bringing it to their hometown, so that if you have a small group of vets in a central area, that we can bring that program to them, and instead of them having to travel somewhere else. The big advantage of that is then they can continue to meet afterwards, because the aftercare sometimes is another big piece of that. With the Welcome Home Initiative, we've got some vets that meet like every Tuesday night, and we're all just it's we sign in on Zoom or Teams or whatever flavor it is, but different places around the country, but just kind of to talk to each other and get what's on our heart and pray for one another.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Paul, this you've gone through a lot of cool programs, and you're on the East Coast. You're over there in Virginia Beach area, and these programs kind of exist over there. If anybody's listening that is in the East Coast area and need to get a hold of Paul, let me know, and I'll definitely link you up. On top of that, these warrior groups like you're talking about are super important, because not only just for us, but for anybody that's dealing with PTSD. And I want to say, even if you don't deal with PTSD, to kind of have a group that you can come to every week, or if there's ever something that's needed, and it's probably that, because you really want to develop some sort of connection there. As much as church and faith and everything's really super important, Bible study is super important, but it's also very important to kind of not just talk about your faith, but also talk about the things that you're dealing with internally in your life that might be a struggle. And some of them maybe aren't, but that camaraderie and the ability to kind of share some really cool things, bad ones and good ones, will really strengthen some really the construction of some bridges that are definitely needed for repair. And appreciate you talking about that too, Paul. But yeah, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the newest things is actually a branch off of the WHI group, in this little group that meets on Tuesday. A gentleman by the name of Noel Dawes has introduced us to a group. He's been involved in a couple different military Christian groups, but there's a program called Healing the Wounds of Trauma. It's a church piece that actually got started from over in Africa.
Hotel Rwanda.
Rwanda, yeah. Right. And so healing, and now it's come kind of full circle. It's back in the States. It has stories that kind of hit on a lot of civilian side of trauma, but we're bringing in a new piece in that, or a new chapter, or what have you, that covers kind of the combat stress. So we're looking to kick off a group and try that this winter, and which will be new. So myself and and him have gone through and are I guess apprentice facilitators in that program, but looking to.
And And Noel Dowles is he? Didn't you tell me he's related to what's his significance
ACCTS? Yeah, that is the that's it. I have to look up the
acronyms. Yeah, you have to look up the acronyms.
Too many acronyms.
But he had some relationship with Hotel Rwanda, the movie. If you've ever seen it, there's
not Noel. That was another gentleman. It's just many things kind of connected. ACCTS was the Association for Christian Conferences and Teaching.
Okay.
And when we went from that program through this Healing Wounds of Trauma, there was a lady that was up in Boston, but it took us back to. No, I had actually met personally the son of the hotel manager who lives up in Boston, and that was
that's right.
So that was the connection there. It was his name is Roger Ressuscibagina, and actually through him I found out that his father was in 2020, August 2020. They tricked him into. He thought he was going to do a speech. He's actually back in prison in Rwanda right now. They're trying to hold him so they're trying to raise money to get him out of the prison over there. The new president is kind of hyped up, called him a terrorist, and he's not. But crazy things that happen in other countries, and hopefully not in this country. But things are getting pretty wacky over here now too.
Yeah, if you want to just talk about that a little bit. I mean, I sometimes wonder why we as service members don't force our way into office more often. And part of it, I think, is because we've already given our ultimate service and we just want to taste the freedoms that we actually fought for. And we want to hope that the people that are going to take the lead on that are going to do a good job. I don't know if that's how you kind of feel internally, because you're Master Chief, you served, you did all this stuff, you're still serving the Navy. You want to believe in some things, and you've seen some things out there in the world. We get to see these things that kind of go down in our own country, and a lot of us service members shake our heads at it because we understand leadership, we understand principles, we understand the misleading, guiding principles of newscasting, and I think sometimes that rabbit hole we just go, no, it's just politics is way too ugly for me. Yeah. So I do have a segment called Politics I'm Out, and it's where I just kind of talk about, in general, I don't do a lot of research, but I do common sense type stuff that says, hey, something's not making sense here. There's more behind the scenes than what you see. It's time that you got to read between the lines and just kind of figure it out for yourself and put your own mindset into it. Yeah, if you want to just put a little bit out there on that, Paul, your mindset on some of these things.
Well, I don't want anyone to paint me as a conspiracy theorist, but I'll just say that, I agree exactly. It's like I don't trust hardly anything that I read or see anymore on the press, because it's just like it's more like it's coming from. The funny thing is, take a couple different things from movies just sort of hit me. One was when we were talking about the things in training, was we just watched Maverick over the
great movie. I loved it.
Don't think, just do. Right? That's it exactly. You have to practice and practice, so you don't think and you just do. Tying back to that piece, but in the same way, we also watched the World War II movie on the British Prime Minister, The Darkest Hour, and followed by Dunkirk.
Oh yeah,
And when you look at the propaganda machine that Germany was there, with those soldiers dropping all the flyers, you're surrounded, you might as well give up. It's all mind game and stuff. Information warfare has become a very concise thing anymore, and it's been studied in colleges. And when I look at the politics of the colleges that study this stuff, and I look at the big tech companies that push a lot of this stuff, and the small number of people that own many of the media companies, it's like, are we sending tailored messages to get people to do specific things, as if we're in our country where we've got information warfare going, and can I trust? It's not necessarily that it's wrong; it's that it's tailored to frame it just the way they want to show the picture, to get people to do the things they want them to do and leave the rest of the story out. Those things that are outside the frame is what you've got to go dig in and look up yourself, because many times when you unframe that picture and you look beyond the little skinny frame that they've pointed you in on, even though that's a perspective of the truth, it's much like a disco ball. You're just looking at one or two little facets here, and there's the whole truth is all those multiple facets all the way around. And so don't get don't think just because you have seen a couple facets that you know the truth. It really takes some research, and I think the only place that I really find real truth is in my Bible right now. This is where I put my biggest trust if I'm going to read something.
Yeah, that was I tell people all the time, even if you don't have faith,
Yeah.
the Bible was one of the first books written, and it's written by man. It's written in a way that can give you a guiding light to anything that you're going to face in life. And I don't think there's another book out there with everything that you will face in life that has it all in it. And I try to, because it's hard, because like you said, you had to come back to your faith. I mean, you go through a certain phase in your life where you see this kind of carnage and things, and you have to you question. But that's what faith is about, is questioning and finding that truth around where you need it to fit, and what it's all about. So Paul, good on you. Faith is a very touchy subject, and I know with everybody it can be.
Understood.
Yeah, but it's very important to have something to believe in. And
I think a lot of times it's just people have been introduced to facets of that have been pulled off in the wrong direction. Many times it's we're all humans, and so when humans get too involved and they make it their own, it becomes not what it was meant to be. So I'll just leave it at that. But I know just quote another piece from going back to the WHI, Father Nigel, something that people need to understand. Post-traumatic stress, and I think they've dropped the and I keep saying it, the PTS instead of PTSD, because it's not, they dropped the disorder piece in there.
Right.
But it is a normal reaction to a abnormal situation. So when something truly tragic happens to people, you've got many reasons why the body reacts the way it does, and shuts things away, and makes us act the way we do. And then it's dealing with it's how we deal with that afterwards, and deal with the loved ones around us. I know, and that's the biggest thing with me is when we see the number of vets that were committing suicide, and the number of marriages and stuff that are struggling, and the families that are getting the after effects of people dealing with stuff that they don't know how to deal with. If there's an avenue that will help, and whether it's faith-based or not, but I'm of a mind that psychology reveals, but Jesus heals. And
oh yeah,
it is it's a great thing to be able to dump those anxieties and those problems and those other things off somewhere else and get back to some normalcy in life.
Definitely. Great stuff, Paul. Hey, I know we only got a couple more minutes, but any last closing thoughts on you, please feel free to drop. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, please throw it out there right now. And then again, they can get through to you through me. I will link you up to Paul if you can't get a hold of him, if you can't find his info somewhere or whatnot. So
Well, my email address is paul.abney@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, both by those same names with the same email address. And that'd probably be the easiest way through any one of those methods, or through these guys. I'd be glad to get back with you. I love the stuff that that I've looked into your organizations that you've been associated with. Some of the things they're doing, like the
all the racing, all the from Warrior Built Foundation and
Moribel
obviously
Foundation,
and obviously the PTSD
PTSD
Foundation of America doing the
Foundation.
faith-based
They have
program and getting our
They
guys.
have they have that program down there. What is it, Camp Hope?
Camp Hope in Houston.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really doing a lot of really good things for a lot of
Yeah,
people.
and that seems like a long term, and I've heard of other ones out there, Mighty Oaks. Any program that that could help. I think it really takes that step of the individual to get involved, though, to take the first step and go get help for themselves. That no one else can help them. They must help themselves. We can point you in the right direction, show you the links, show the people to contact. I'd be glad to do any of that, but without them taking that first scary step. But I'll say that fear is a liar, and that
That's a good one.
there's freedom from fear, and finding that freedom from fear, I think, is an important thing to help get people back to that. And even if you want to look at a lot of the Psalms, I read a Psalm and a proverb every day, and the Psalms of David, he dealt with tons of trauma, constantly being chased around by a king. He was supposed to be anointed as the king over him, and he was like not going to touch this man that was anointed until he was gone. But some crazy stories, but it's good stuff. And and I know people have different faith. I just I've found mine that strengthens me, and I would hope that they would look that direction.
Well, thanks a lot, Paul. Much appreciation for you to be here. Thanks for sharing your story, your faith, your healing, your resources, your desire to continue to help, and obviously still support the Navy's efforts as well. There's still a lot of things. I just feel like I got out of the military wearing the uniform, but I still do exactly what I did when I was at Wounded Warrior Battalion West. And there's so many cool things about you. You were part of some training teams and stuff. We didn't get into that, but I'll get you back on here another time and we'll talk about some other things. But I know those training teams became super important, and you're making sure that these ships were trained up and making sure that they were doing what they needed to do is super important. And shout out to Mike DeLeon for linking us together.
Yes, sir.
He's got Recon Chief nonprofit organization and doing some really cool things. But if you need anything, hit me up. And we'll talk again soon, brother.
If I can help either one of you guys, just give me a holler. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk.
Will do. Hey, this is Combat Vet Vision. This is a great time to tell your story as a combat vet, to bring some stuff to the forefront. You just never know where it's going to go and what it's going to lead to, but Paul, great for being on my show. Till next time, hey, this is Aaron Siebert signing off. Strength and Honor out.